Hey guys, we are here in a big open space so we can lay out the block. I have my helper here, he's gonna help me today. And I already have the rows set up over here. Now when you're doing this, you're gonna wanna have the pattern out so that you can get yours into rows. And even with the pattern printed out, it took me about 4 or 5 times. So, I'm gonna go ahead and start. I'm starting on the second row. That first row is gonna be all white squares, which I think I'm gonna do a strip instead of the squares, which I'll show you next. Over here. Can you scoot over, Emilio? You're gonna have to. Can you say hi to everybody? Say hi, everybody. Alright, now I'm on that 4th row. Scoot up a little. Here's my row 1, 2, and I'm working on 3. Now these are all the half square triangles that we did, and remember we had half square triangles that were out of the dark blue, the light blue with the background, and then the dark and the blue together. And once we get it all laid out, scoot back, Emilio. We are about halfway laid out right here. You can kind of see it starting to come together. Lost my little helper there. Alright, so this is looking so good. These blues just remind me of aquamarine. Aquamarine is what it makes me think of so much. And maybe because that's my birthstone, but these blues just really pop. That dark blue, that crystal blue on the botanical. I mean, it just reminds you of like ocean, blue skies. Very gorgeous. These are very gorgeous colors together. Alright, and then the last row. Hopefully you guys can see all of that. Alright, this is it. This is our carpenter star all together. Now, when I finally got it laid out to keep it together in rows so that it was easier to carry to the sewing machine so we can sew it in the proper order. So I just started with when I finally had it the correct way laid out, I just stacked my squares one on top of the other for that row, and then I know that those go together, and then I would put a post-it right there or a sticky note, whatever you got, so that I know that those squares will be sewn together, and then I would do that to the next row, and then that way hopefully getting all sewn exactly the correct way. And it's so much easier to do. Alright. So now I'm just going to stack them all up. I'm going to get over to the sewing machine. And I'm going to put this beautiful carpenter star all together. All right, now we are at the sewing machine with all of our rows stacked, and we're just gonna grab that first square and sew it to that second square, which this one is pretty easy because they're just two of the background. I go ahead and sew that together. And then we're just going to continue to that next block in my stack, and we're going to sew that onto here. And we will just continue through all the stacks just like that, lining it up on the edge and sewing. We're going to keep to that 1/4 seam allowance. So here's the beginning, and we're going to go to the next square, which will go right here. So I'll flip it over where the right sides are together, line it up, and sew straight down that edge. Oh, I'm stuck right there. There we go. Just gonna keep on going. Our next block. Line up the edges and sew down that so we are getting longer. Next square. Now every row is going to be a little different because we're going to have that carpenter star design at the end. So keeping your blocks in those stacks is going to be key and very important to getting this to come out how it's supposed to. All right, my next two squares are the background. One more and the first row will be complete. And we will just continue on through each row. The first row is completed. So here's row 1. So exciting! So I will continue on until we have all of our rows done. All right, guys, all my rows are sewn together. So I've laid the carpenter star out again, and I still have all my rows labeled right there. Now I'm going to sew each row together. I have row 1 laid out right here in front of me. And this is row 2. So I'm going to flip row 2 on top of row 1. Now I'm going to go through lining up the seams for each block. So now that those two are lined up, right there, I'm going to go ahead and stick a pin in there. And I'm going to go to the next seam right here. I'm going to line it up and stick a pin right there. So I will go through and do that all the way down, and then I will sew along that edge. And I will continue to do that to each row. Okay guys, I have all the rows sewn together. This carpenter star is looking great. Now, instead of doing that full row on the top and bottom of the white fabric and sewing squares together, what I have done is I've just cut a strip. And I will sew one on the bottom there, and then on the other side at the top over here. And to me, that just makes it go a little bit faster than cutting out the squares and sewing them together. So I'll do that next. All right, guys, grab your 1 yard of the botanical blue, and we're gonna cut borders. We're gonna cut 6.5 inch strips. The pattern calls for cutting 4. I had to use 5, so my squares might have been a tad bigger than what the pattern actually called for. So cut your 6.5 inch border strips, sew them together, and then sew them around the carpenter star. So I've got my top and my bottom sewn on, and now I will go and do the other 2 sides. Check it out. I have my borders on, my carpenter star. So good, guys. I love it. Now I just have to do a sandwich, quilting, binding, and done. Bye.